Fitz of Writing.
Hey there, Scribbles and Scratches. Welcome to the Fitz of Writing. I'm your host this episode, RM Johnson. And as always, for my own creative edification as well as your entertainment, we bring yet another sacrifice to that most wicked altar we call the internet. Tonight, I'm talking with Kore McKelvey. She is a poet, improvisateur, and a budding narrative storyteller. Let's start talking to her so I can stop doing the part of the show that I hate the most, which is talking to myself. Welcome to the show, Core. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
As always, hating my life when I first start this show. So I always like to open these up. I have a little thing where I ask the writer to tell me where their story begins in regards to their writing journey and like what kicked them off. So where you want to tell us where your story starts?
Okay, well, my story actually starts in eighth grade when I did Power of the Pen, which is only an Ohio thing, and they don't do it anymore, which is really terrible. I don't know why. They only did it for a couple years. Get back on it, Ohio. What you do?
Yes, 100%.
And
Encourage
they,
your youths to write.
100%, yes. And basically, they would take us back and we would have 30 minutes with a prompt to write a short story. And we would go through 3 rounds and they would judge us. And we would have like sectionals and then semifinals and then state. And I was at the College of Worcester and I did not make it to finals, but I was able to meet Margaret Peterson Haddix, which is a sci fi writer. She was really incredible and she signed a book for me, which I did not read because it was not one of her sci fi books. And I felt really bad. It was one of her princess books. And I was like, I don't like your princess books.
Oh,
Okay, but thank you.
this I love
But
this autograph. Trash. Do you still have it? Do you, st- do you still have it?
I no, I just gave it away. I gave it away to a little girl that really wanted to read a princess book, and I just put a sticker over my name. I was like, "There you go. It's signed by the author." She got really excited
And I'm sure that was purely out of an effort to encourage her to write.
to encourage her to write. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she was like, "This is so cool." And but yeah, no, sorry, Margaret Peterson Haddix, you're great. I love meeting you. I'm so glad you're at Power of the Pen, encouraging people to write. And I'm glad you can now encourage a little girl to write. I just don't like your princess books.
So and then that led you into college at Ohio State,
Yes,
right? And
yes,
there you have interesting little tale where you were a nude model in art class, right?
yes, I was. I actually continued nude modeling after I left college. Um, because I loved it so much. It was such an interesting thing. What an icebreaker to tell people I was a nude model. Um, but yeah, it was one of my favorite things to do and to tell people that I do. And I feel like it really healed my body dysmorphia issues because I was able to see myself in the works of art that the students were creating. Because I'm a huge historical art fan and historical fashion fan too. I delved deep into those classes in college and to see my body and those body types in art, in the sculptures, and then to see it created then in art in these students' creations, I was able to slowly heal myself. And I think that's an experience that not a lot of people have. So any chance I get is like, hey, you should try this. And everybody's like, are you flipping kidding? No. I'm like, but you have a beautiful body type. Every body type is gorgeous. But yeah,
Yep, you've heard it. Kore McKelvey, stamp of approval. Everybody should be naked.
yes. Look at yourself in the mirror and go, I am gorgeous. Like there's a Renaissance painter that would love to paint me.
Yeah,
A
and
100%.
I would say it would probably be a better experience to have an artist paint you than it is for you to look at yourself in the mirror. When you did submit that, it did get me to thinking like, yeah, that is kind of like a real almost medicine of itself, where you can see the interpretation of what someone else is seeing when they look at you versus like how you feel about yourself. Um,
Yeah.
it is kind of transformative, and so that's quite a it's quite a thing. I don't think I've ever met anyone else that has opted to be a nude model. And then when did you? That kind of leads me to my next question: is when did you start becoming an improvisateur? Was that during the same time, a little bit after, a little bit before?
It was kind of during the same time because I had actually dropped out of college to become an EMT, and don't drop out of college. Don't do that. Bad idea. Um,
Don't go to college.
anyway, and no, you should go to college. If you know what you want to do, go to college. I don't know. My 20s is weird. I didn't know what I was going to do. Anyway, that's beside the point. I was an EMT. It was really depressing. That's also beside the point. And I was doing jobs that were lively and out there and creative and weird to kind of bring myself back to life from the depressing job. And so I was continuing to doing the new modeling thing while I was the EMT. And I also saw this ad to become an improv actress. And I had grew up in the theater as a kid, but I stopped acting. I was like, I'm not going to do that. Gosh, I only did that because, I wanted to try it, but I'm a shy person. Oh, I don't want to do this. And then I was like, God, I need to do something. So I just out on the whim auditioned for this improv theater and I got it for some reason. Why did you do that? Anyway, uh, they cast me, and suddenly I'm like traveling to other states on the weekends, and I'm a flapper girl for some reason. I'm a flapper girl on the weekends with a Brooklyn accent, very Harley Quinn esque, doing these improv shows that are murder mystery inspired. And there was three shows. There was a pirate one. There was Dickens of a Killing, where everybody in the audience was a Charles Dickens character. We were trying to figure out who killed Scrooge. And then there was the Flapper Girl one, which was a lot of fun.
It all sounds very fun. I don't think enough people get into improv. I think I want to commend you because it is something I try to do personally, where it's like there's this thing where it about confronting your own fears and like kind of embracing your uncomfortability. I mean, that's what I'm doing right now. That's the whole reason. Like,
Oh, yeah.
not the whole reason, but one
You're
of the
doing a great
reasons
job.
I do appreciate you saying so. About me doing this is like I hate being photographed. I hate having my voice recorded. I hate the sound of my own voice, even though everyone says I love to hear myself talk. Um, but it's something like, yeah, I'm just confronting it. I'm embracing it. I'm trying to get better at it. And that's kind of like what you chose to do when you got into that. You're like, I'm a shy person. I don't know why I got into acting. I probably got convinced. And then at some point in your life, you're just like, I'm gonna kind of dive into it. Do you feel like that helped you deal with like that feeling of like being afraid of kind of expressing yourself?
I think so. I feel like I was able to pour myself out on the stage. Like I didn't have a lot of outlets for feelings, and the stage and writing were the only two places that I was able to just truly be myself. Everything else in life just it was like a cage. But when I was able just to be free and fun with improv or to do Shakespeare, because I moved on to actual acting after the weird flapper girl phase, um, I was able to just really to delve deep into the visceral emotions because writing is fun too, but to actually feel yourself be a character is different. And so I feel like that is an outlet that I really needed in my life.
And I have to imagine like being able to do that skill set of like mentally stepping into the shoes of someone else has to
Hmm.
like reinforce your ability to write, especially if you're doing dialogue or anything like that.
Yes.
so that kind of leads me into what we're talking about today. Why we brought you on the show. You're
Hmm.
you've you've released a book. It's a set of narrative poems that are they're separate poems, but they're telling a grand story. And that story is called Letters from Elysium. It's tied into the mythos of Persephone and Hades and the relationship they had. And your take from the original lore is that it's a not a good relationship. We'll say that. Do you want to
Yes.
kind of walk us through like what made you feel like this was the medium? Well, this is the story you wanted to tell.
Yes. I really like using the cycle of the seasons to show the cycle of abuse. Because when you are stuck in a relationship like that, and I won't go into details, it is very, very, very hard to step out of it because you have people in your life that are convincing you to get out of it, and those people might be overbearing. They might want the best for you, but you were so swept up in your own emotions of the manipulation from all sides, and you go, oh yes, I want to believe in this, I want to believe in the good, and you try to step out, but you pulled back in so many different ways.
Hmm.
And so you try to grow with the seasons, and then you die with the seasons. And so it's her journey of trying to find her own voice when everybody's voice is louder, trying to find comfort in her own embrace when the thorns are pressing so deeply in her sides. So it's a delve into nature, and a delve into a person's true soul.
And just to clarify, it's not an entire book set from the perspective. I mean, it's a majority perspective
No,
of Persephone, but you
yes,
do slip in other people's. I think my favorite poem out of what you sent me is a poem called "Depravity" from the perspective of Hermes. And I think, like
yes,
I've mentioned before, like this kind of tickles my poetry bone. It's a little bit more of the classic structured rhymey vibe, but there's some wordplay in there that I also really enjoy. Not to say that the other poems aren't good, because I think they are. They're just this one kind of tickles me a little bit more. What is your out of what you have? What is your favorite, if in fact you have a favorite?
Um, I'll answer that question. I do want to say one little thing about Hermes because I really like that he has this perspective in everything that nobody else has, and that's why his he has a very strong structure that no one else has in the book, and it's the only voice that helps pull her out, and so that's why I did choose that. And I love Hermes as a character in the book. When it comes to my favorite poems, I really love Honeysuckles and Ivy because they are two poems that play into each other. It talks about not being able to breathe and have your own kind of suffocating yourself, and it uses ivy as a symbolism with crawling its way down your throat. And then it ends the chapter. In the next chapter, it says that the ivy has found its way into the stomach and healed the entire body. And I think that is a perfect metaphor of healing from trauma, where it doesn't quite go away, but it heals the entire body.
And I would also, I mean, I'd double down and say it also doesn't always feel comfortable. Healing
No, exactly.
sometimes is difficult. Um, and sometimes it's that difficult path we take that heals us the most. I would like to, you know, uh, posit like why did you feel like this particular story that you decided to tell fit the medium of poetry versus a narrative story?
I think because it deals with so many difficult and uncomfortable themes that if I were to write it out in a traditional narrative, it would be very uncomfortable to read. And I would also go to say that it wouldn't reach as many people. For example, my aunt I read this book when it came out, and she has never gone through anything like BV. However, she was grieving, and the poems really hit grief in BV and losing a relationship. But she took it and read it as grief in her life, and it was very healing for her. And I feel like everybody who, and poetry is a beautiful medium in that way that you can find meaning in the way that you need it. And I don't think that you can find that if you write it in a different way, in a traditional way, in
Yeah,
prose.
I think you're able to kind of tap into something a little bit different there. I mean, that's really a large part of why I wanted to talk to you is because I thought it was such a unique. I'll say unique. I don't know how unique it is, but I think it's unique of taking something this kind of material and using it to speak about a very traumatic thing, but using it in poetry, um, because poetry can kind of like bridge that gap for a lot of people versus narrative story. You feel like you're just kind of experiencing something from the sidelines. Where poetry generally has a very unique ability to make you a part of it. Um, and I
Right.
thought that was a really good idea, and that's really why I was like, I feel like we should talk about this. Uh, I do kind of want to. Well, before I get off on a tangent about other stuff, uh, do you have the book on you?
I do.
Yeah, I want to talk about the book cover because the cover art I love. I love the cover art.
Thank you.
You want to talk about how you went about creating it and
It
crediting
was
the artist?
Canva. It's not anything fancy. It's something that you can do for free. You know,
Well, you did a
I
fantastic job.
thank you. And the back is also Canva. With a short poem from the book. Well, it's an excerpt of the poem from the book. All the materials I've done for the book
Oh,
have been through Canva.
oh, I love that.
Thank you.
That's really good. You're
Um,
very
so it
talented.
really goes to show that if you want to do something, go out and do it because you can find the tools out there.
Yeah, 100%. That's what Sean and I are on that journey right now. We're trying to do all this stuff ourselves. We're developing new skill
Yeah.
sets as we speak. Uh, so you are a very naturally bubbly person.
Well, thank you.
You're very charismatic, very bubbly. This is some very serious stuff. Did you find some difficulty in trying to convey the serious material versus just your natural exuberance?
No, this is just bleeding ink, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, like, honestly, these are feelings that I've had. And I was just, it's the same thing as if I got cast in a Shakespeare production. I was just bleeding on the stage, and this is just bleeding ink in a book. It needed to get out, and this is the medium that it came out in. And I'm glad it's out, and it's beautiful, and I am proud of it.
And you should be. I think those kind of things are very cathartic. I think
Mm.
I, you going back to what you said about your aunt, right? Your aunt, I believe I
Yes.
heard that correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think there is something very medicinal, we'll say, about not necessarily having to experience or re-experience the same trauma, but just experiencing trauma and seeing how someone else deals with it or copes with it or their story can help you kind of cope with your own, even if it's not even remotely connected. Just kind of seeing someone deal with it can be inspiring in its own right. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on that, but
Oh, I understand.
I know you and I talked before about the struggle of poetry in the market. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, as poets, it's hard for us to find a home. It's hard for us to find support. Have you found similar difficulties?
I think it's easier to find support in person. There are open mics just locally and in cities that I found just enormous support. and it is such a beautiful like small communities for that. But when it comes to like getting published, it is it's so hard. It is hard to find people who truly mean you well, and who where you are actually going to get paid for your work. So I don't think there is much of a market for poetry like we discussed before. I think it is just very much of a dead market. I think if it isn't inspirational poetry that is easy to digest, then it's a mute point. And I also think this is a bit of a hot take, but I think everybody wants to find relatable content, things that are hard. But if it's too hard, if it's too nitty gritty, then it's out the window too. So you have to find this like individual, like in between point where it's hard, it's relatable, it's I've been through this before, but it's inspirational. I'm going up the hill, I'm gonna make it. And that's the poetry that sells. And it's short and it's marketable, and then that's where what people are gonna read. And if you don't hit that point, then it's out the window. And then I think that's kind of not great. That's
No,
not the poetry I want to write.
yeah, that's a sad reality that this thing that was created, long ago, which is essentially like the lifeblood of all writing, has kind of been reduced into this thing that's about palatability and marketability. And it's like the point of poems was about digging into human psyche, the human heart, um, finding a way to discuss the dark parts, the bright parts, the good and the bad in ways that people just hadn't thought of before. And now we're just like, well, it's gotta be this or it's gotta be that. And that if you're writing that way, it I don't know what the hell you're doing. Like, because
Right.
to me, you're not fulfilling the purpose of what poetry is meant to be, which is to not essentially it's not meant to be marketable, but it because it's not, it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think people in our society today are given it enough due diligence. I think last time we kind of talked about it, we were talking about how in schools they're like, the poems that they make people read in schools kind of creates this disinterest at an early age because they're, you know, old poems. Some of them are still classics, but a lot of them are just like speaking at a language that it's hard for people to comprehend. Uh, you know, Shakespeare is really pushed on kids when there's a lot of poetry out there that's much more elevated, much more new.
Hmm.
Uh,
Exactly. And I feel like people have this, they take what they learned in school and think, oh, I don't understand poetry because their teacher were like, you're not getting from this poem what I want you to get from it. And it kills the creativity from interpretation when really poetry should be up for interpretation. But they really killed that. And then it takes as an adult, they don't seek out poetry anymore. And it's really sad.
um, so I do want to kind of we were talking earlier about imposter syndrome, and
Yes.
you feel
Yeah.
it, I feel it, and I would love to just kind of have you just talk about it in general and see how many people will relate because I certainly do.
Oh yeah. I think I just have it really bad. Who doesn't? I mean, I've had it with everything. Like when I was at Just Murder Mystery Company, my acting partner had a BFA, and I just auditioned for this for no reason at all. And I was like, man, why am I here? Getting paid to be a jester for no reason. And then when I got got published, when I published this book, and I was at the Columbus Book Expo, and we had, I think it was around like 50,000 people weaving in and out of this Columbus Book Expo, and I was just sitting there with my other friend who is an author in this indie author tent, and I was just like, man, I don't belong here. Why am I here? Man, to go talk to somebody else because they had so many people kind of like not heckling their book. No, that's not the right word. Kind of like cold calling, like, come here, let me tell you about my book. And I was just like, oh man, if you want me to tell you about my book, I will. But I won't because it's kind of depressing.
Yeah,
But if
there
you
there
want to over to it, I will.
there is something uncomfortable about like asking people to come check out your stuff or, to be excited
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. It's unnatural.
Yeah, and it's so and I think it's really, especially the contents of my book, because it's not necessarily for everyone, and I think like everybody else, kind of you could kind of like if it's a sci-fi or if it's a romance, especially if it's a romance, man, everybody goes crazy for romance, but like for me, just it's just weird to be like, come check out my book. It's gonna make you sad for days.
You'll be in the corner crying.
Yeah,
Come get my
yeah.
book, free
I just didn't,
tissues. It comes with free tissues.
right? I just felt like I didn't really belong there. Like, I just wasn't an authory enough author. Everybody else was authory authors, but I just was
What
a different tier. But then
what does
nobody
that
else
mean?
was treating me like that. I don't know. I don't know. It's something my brain came up with. But all the other authors treated me like I was an author, but then I didn't. I was just like, oh my gosh, you're special. And they were like, oh, I'll check you out. I'm like, okay, go. But I'm not worthy.
So I think that kind of leads us into the next question I had. When we were talking
Yes.
earlier, you mentioned that Letters from Elysium does have some kind
Yes.
of controversy that you felt uh, resist against it when you were promoting it originally. You want
Yeah.
to kind of bring us all up to speed in regards to that?
Yeah, and I won't touch too much on it, but I feel like there's a lot of people who like to ship Hades and Persephone, and that's fine. I won't yuck your yum. This is not for you.
Yuck, you're young.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lore Olympus was a big thing. There's a touch of darkness. Like everyone has their own thing. Um, myth is one of those things where the reason why I wrote this is because I feel like this myth is a vehicle to tell real stories. And I felt drawn to this myth to tell a very real story. And I felt like intuition wise, it was the right one and it was the right thing for me to do. And um, I know a lot of people don't like that, and they have been very vocal about not liking that. But then it's not for you because the people who need this will find it and will read it. And then if you want to go ship them, go ship them.
Hmm.
Go read the other stuff. There's so much of the other stuff. There's only like I haven't seen somebody who has taken the chance of saying something else. So there's so much other literature for you. Like go over there. Like and that's fine. I think we all could be happy in our little spaces.
And I'll stand up beside you on this.
Thank you.
She's decided to write a story that she felt drawn to, and she wanted to tell a very particular story. And I think as an artist and as a writer and a creative, we should have the freedom to at least attempt to do that. And so, like, just because someone does something that you feel like you don't approve of doesn't mean that it shouldn't be tried. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the right to attempt it. And in this regard, I think this is a wonderful attempt. I think it brings up a conversation. I think it talks about things that should be in, discussed and talked about. And it is a healing message. And I don't know who you are to bat away a healing message. Like we need more of that in this world. And so again, she's very nice, very polite. Understand that the story you want is not this one. if you guys want to try to experience the story and see what she's trying to do, I encourage you to buy the book and look it up before you start judging and throwing controversial comments her way. But um, I will die on the hill to defend the right for you to try to emulate a story in a way that you feel like is impactful or even helpful. So there's my piece. I've said it.
And also, like, for other writers that have are afraid of doing something just because they might think it is a little controversial, you might get pushed back on some things. Try it anyway. This has been a very scary experience because I knew I went into this knowing I was going to get pushed back. I did get pushed back. It might happen. Still do the thing, you know?
Mhm.
Stand by your work, especially if you think it's good. And it is, like I said, I bled ink with this. If you're bleeding ink in it, if you really believe in your message, do it anyway.
1,000%. Um, I do want to remind everyone. I At the time of release of this, I'm not sure where it's going to be. We've kind of bounced around. She's in the middle of trying to relocate its availability right now. As we're talking, it's available Barnes and Noble. She wants to eventually move it to Amazon. So there's a high likelihood by the time this releases, it'll be on Amazon. So look for it on there. Letters from Elysium. I do kind of want to backtrack a lot, um, because you're also working on something else that's not poetry related, that's not trauma related. It is a psychological thriller that it got spawned by the idea of you being a nude model. And
Yes.
I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Like, talk about as much as you feel comfortable. What's the
Okay.
plot of this? Like, where's this story going so far?
So it follows a woman in France in the 600 years in the future where magic and technology has kind of fused together, and she has the ability to tap into the perspectives of other people and manipulate them. So she can be like modeling on the model stand and tap into the students' perspective and see how they view her, and she can create roses around her so they can paint them in their works and stuff like that.
And where does this take place? Like, is this future, different world?
Oh, it's a future, so it's 600 years in the future.
So, I kind of just want to talk a little bit about you. That's interesting. I'm
Yeah,
excited. I hope we can bring you back when you do release that, so we can talk about that.
yeah, and it's a really interesting work, and it did spawn from my experience at OSU, specifically from one comment that was made from somebody said to me when I was a nude model, and I was like, "Oh man, that's so weird. I want to write a book out of this one day." And then I ended up doing it, and I love that it kind of created its own thing. So
That I love when story ideas kind of pop up out of the ether in that regard. In
yeah,
fact, that's the whole reason why I started doing teletales when I first started writing. But I'll explain all that stuff at the end of the show. But yeah, it was the essence of like getting inspiration from a very minute source, a glimpse of a thing, and just seeing like what could spawn from that. So how long have you lived in the Midwest like your entire life?
um, kind of. I took a short sabbatical in South Carolina.
Sabbatical.
Yeah, I escaped for a year.
Yeah, I've done the
I
same.
escaped to South Carolina. Um, to Charleston, and it was the best year of my life. And then I came back.
And it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, when I told you I moved away from the Midwest and moved back, you were like, "Oh, I'm sorry." So, I do have a general question when it comes to just poetry. Like, when you're writing
Yes.
poetry, and I mean, you can answer in a general sense for just writing, but I'm asking for poetry. when you're writing poetry, what elements do you feel like should be like included in a poem for you personally to feel like it's a good poem?
Okay, so I'm gonna say image, strong imagery, specifically nature, because I mess with structure a lot. Um, in Letters from Elysium, it's very lyrical because it kind of reads like a diary. But my personal poetry, I mess with rhyming schemes quite a bit. Also, there was a period where I was grieving a family death, and I only wrote haikus, and for about like 6 months. And but the thorough thread of everything, it was my love of nature and just being in the present moment, and those very visceral themes of connecting to nature and having that as symbols. So you can look into all my poetry writing and find those. And it's very occult too, because that's my practices in witchcraft. We haven't touched on that yet, but I'm very connected to nature in my practices as well. So I think that's just who I am as a person, is I'm very connected to nature, and you can see that in my poetry.
Well, I mean, let's go ahead and kind of pivot to that. I do know that you are a witch.
Yeah.
There apparently is a difference between witch and Wiccans. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not highly educated on it. So, you want to kind of tell us the difference and like where you feel like you fall?
Um, it's like witchcraft is a practice, Wicca is a religion. I think
Hmm.
that's the easiest way of saying that. It's like paganism is a religion if you worship the deities, but you can practice witchcraft and be pagan and worship the deities. I only practice witchcraft because I believe in gaining power from the self and worshiping basically kind of your connection to nature and just kind of being one with yourself and the universe. Those are my personal beliefs, but it's all kind of interconnected in the space. So you'll have people who are Wiccan and also call themselves a witch because they do practice witchcraft.
And do you feel like you're ever going to create like a Alien versus Predator story where it's like witch versus Wiccan, the Wiccaning?
That would be amazing. It would be better as a video game.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just like
Yeah, I think yeah,
versus.
that would be kind of cool. Are you thinking like a fighting video game, or are you thinking like an RPG
Yes,
kind of thing? Oh,
I
okay.
was thinking like a fighting video game
So, a fighting video game with two characters. You have Witch or
with
Wiccan.
two
That's
characters. It would be very short.
man. That combat system would have to be really developed for just to be hinging on just two characters.
Oh my god.
Well, let me pivot back to poetry and kind of mirror
Yeah, go for it.
the last question I asked you. What is something about you know poetry when you read that you kind of hate that poets do, or you feel like doesn't necessarily define it when a lot of people think it does define good poetry?
Um, I think you can say a lot in less. So there are a lot of submission guidelines when you're trying to get your work published where you have to meet a certain word count. Oddly, it's 500 words, which I think is crazy amount for poetry.
Hmm.
Um, because a lot of my poetry is shorter, even the longer ones are shorter. But I think you can do a lot with like couplets. Um, and even like haikus are short, and that's a structured form. And so I feel like people think that you have to have really long poetry in order to say what you want to say and for it to be good. It has to be be this very polished, very practiced thing, and I don't think that's necessarily the case.
I agree. I think a great definition is that like the mastery of poetry is saying the most you can with as little as possible. Um,
Exactly.
I've shared with you like one poem I had you shared with me. I think those are great examples. You can find mine on my Facebook page. I don't remember the name of the one you shared with me that you felt like was short and very powerful, but do you remember it offhand?
Yeah, it's a slave. Do not become a slave to memory, a hedonist in love with reverie.
Yeah, I love that. I think people I think they buy in too much and feel like long poetry means it's good poetry. And I think there's a place for long poetry, narrative poems. There's definitely a place for that. Some of my favorite poems are narrative, especially coming from Edgar Allan Poe. But some of
Hmm.
them are just like they just feel like one-liners. But to me, those are some of the ones that kind of stay in the test of time because one, they're easier for us to all remember, but they also
Right.
generally kind of latch onto something deep inside of us. And so, with that, I think we are kind of reaching our time frame here. I want to thank you for coming on to the show. I appreciate the conversations we've had. You're a wonderful human being. I can't wait to talk to you about your psychological thriller. I want to let everyone know that they can find you on Facebook through Kore McKelvey author and on Instagram at core underscore McKelvey underscore author. And then she also has a website. We're going to put that in the description because it's really long winded and I don't want to mess it up when I try to say it. I want to let everyone know that we post um, Teletales every Tuesday. Um, the written form, it's a writing prompt. The written form's in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I generally release like a version with audio on it in case you prefer it that way. But it's just a simple thing. I encourage everyone to participate in them. Of course, Core, I encourage you to do the same. It's a writing prompt where I find a photo, an image, generally fantasy, but it ranges just something that speaks to me. Sean or I will like write a story based on what we see through this image. And then we encourage you guys to do the same, put it in the comments, comment on what you think about what we wrote. In fact, Sean and I are also discussing like maybe finding a way to kind of interact with the audience and like just kind of post one out and have you guys put it out there. And then if we find one we really like that you've created, I'll try to put some audio to it and then we'll post it out there for you and make sure that we give you credit for the story. Keep an eye on our Facebook page for any major announcements, when our next episodes are and anything Sean and I are doing. And we ask that you like, comment, and subscribe both on our Facebook and our YouTube channel. Core, is there anything else you want to add before we go?
No, I think you got it.
Oh, you didn't want to call me the world's best host?
The best. No, I think you're great though.
All right. You heard
10
it.
out
A
of
stamp
10.
of approval. 10 out of 10. I guess we'll fade to black.